All right, let's have another crack at this one. Mr. Owen Woko, Senior Advocate of Nigeria and Attorney General for Akwa Ibom State. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today on the program. We're just talking about the judiciary, how so much will depend on the judiciary of this country, if any nation, if the country is supposed to progress from wherever they are. We did hear in the report we just played, when they were reviewing that legal year, talking about people in positions violating or flouting court orders, boasting about it, corruption in the judiciary. Talk to us about those key issues now. How is that prevalent in the judiciary?
Well, good morning, Chamberlain, and good morning, viewers. I hope you are hearing me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Good. Yeah. I think the issue with the judiciary in Nigeria is basically the same issue with the Nigerian society at large. The basic problem, you just mentioned violating of orders or not working in line with the rule of law in Nigeria. The problem basically begins with the head. When government itself tends to act in manners that tend to undermine the authority of the court and the judiciary, that tend to undermine the rule of law, then you expect the ordinary citizen to the same line. The government needs to live above board. Government needs to show compliance with the rule of law. Government needs to show compliance with the Constitution of Nigeria and respect the judiciary. That way, individuals, corporate organizations, and the general citizenry will be forced, compelled to follow the same line. But where we have a situation where government itself, in a number of cases and repeatedly, tends to act in a way that undermines the authority of the court, the authority of judgments, and the rule of law generally, then the problem needs to begin. We need to address it. We need to take the interrogation of the issue from the point of what does the leader do? Because what the leader does is what the followers would easily do.
What does it take us to have it the other way around? Because in some other crimes, the people will determine what the government does. Because if the government acts in ways that they find unacceptable, they will not take it. They will stand their ground. What will it take us to get to that level?
Well, what it would take us to get to that level is what we saw in the NSAS situation a couple of months ago. Nigerians have lived for too long in comfort. And therefore, because of that, Nigerians are very complacent. We don't dare to challenge the status quo. We don't dare to challenge government. And because of primordial interest, most of our situations is either we take it from the religious point of view, or we take it from the ethnic point of view, or even political point of view. Nigerians have not come to a point where they can come together and say, this is a collective problem for us. What it would take for the government to act in a way that is in line with the people's interests and the mandate that the people gave to them is for the people themselves to speak out. Actually, as of now, Nigerians are not really speaking out, except for the NSAS challenge that the youths brought to bear on government, which has actually changed the narrative. It's also, in fact, it's redefining the thinking, it's redefining the political context of Nigeria. We keep on accepting almost anything that is thrown at us. Almost everything that government throws at the people is accepted in Nigeria. And until we change that, until we begin to say, when a South man is bad, it's a bad South man, it's a bad Nigerian. When a Northerner is bad, it's a bad Northerner, it's a bad Nigerian. When an Easterner is bad, it's a bad Easterner, it's a bad Nigerian. And we don't begin to say, no, they are saying it because he's a Muslim. They are saying it because he's a Northerner. They are saying it because he's a Westerner. They are saying it because he's a Southerner. That alone is an infection that eats deep into the sentiments of the country, or the fabrics of the country, and will not allow us to make progress. So for Nigeria to begin to work on the path of progress in every dimension, Nigerians must begin to see Nigeria and not as taking it from the perspective of either ethnic or religious or political lineages.
Now, the judiciary, we've talked about judicial reforms for decades. Why is it that in spite of all the talk that has been said, all that's been said about reforming the judiciary and the systems, we're still where we are?
Because what we call reforms are actually rhetorics. We have enough laws in Nigeria to run the judiciary, to be a perfect judiciary, just like we have in other countries. The laws are good. But the problem we have with the average system in Nigeria is that somebody picks up a piece of legislation, and what he's looking for is how to undermine it. And I said this with all sense of responsibility. We as lawyers are principal culprits in this direction, because a lawyer is the one that guides his clients mostly on how to escape or avoid the law. So we as lawyers, particularly the senior lawyers, have to begin to think of how to make Nigerian laws work. No matter the level of reforms you want to bring, the law is there is nothing you want to do and you cannot find an excuse under the law. If you want to be a bad person, it's like picking the Bible. You can open the Bible and you say, oh, there is time to kill and there is time to keep alive, and then it's okay because there is time to kill, you want to go and kill. Every person that wants to commit an offense or wants to run a bad system might very easily find a justification within the framework of the law to find that to commit that this thing or undermine that system. So all we need to do is first the strength of character. We need people who now look at Nigeria as Nigeria, who look positively and want to achieve the egalitarian society that we all desire for. If no matter the level of reforms we are discussing in the judiciary, nothing is going to change until the players in the system, both the bar and the bench, and the individuals in the society begin to think of how to make the judiciary to work in the interest of the general populace in Nigeria, both the government and the governed. So I don't want us to continue to play this story of judicial reforms. There is nothing to reform except we reform our mindsets.
All right, well, we've got your colleague, Mr. Nelson Quick, is joining us as well, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. For the reforms in the judiciary to occur, as Mr. Nwoko said, does the bar and the bench need to look in the mirror?
Thank you so much, Mr. Chamberlain. I totally agree with the Honorable Attorney General in what he has presented. Like I've always said, and I will keep saying, our greatest challenge as a people is not in the want of laws, rules, and regulations. It has to do with our attitudinal disposition to the workings of these laws. Now, we've come up with several reforms, but the question you first ask yourself is, why are we reforming our laws? We're reforming our laws in order to establish an effective and efficient system. Now, justice has two segments. You have justice administration, and then you have justice delivery. Now, oftentimes, what we do, I would describe it as being cosmetic. Now, the laws are there, the rules are there, but we make it very difficult and arduous for these rules to have the effectiveness that they need. The idea behind all of this is for justice administration to be effective, so as to ensure that there is harmonious justice delivery. Now, if you break the components down into two parts, what you see are micro and macro problems. A lot, the Honorable Attorney General has also identified. Why is it that laws don't work in this side of the world? The reason for that is, again, our attitude. Now, a lot of people tend to get away with a lot of things. And I'll give you a perfect example. What is wrong, for instance, we have a president that has committed several constitutional breaches. You have a National Assembly that can rise up to the occasion because the Constitution is supreme and has binding authority on all persons and authority. Now, if the president cannot be impeached on account of the constitutional breaches that he has committed, Then what are we talking about? You have a governor who has also done certain things that are considered to be unconstitutional and not in the best interest of the state. You have a National Assembly that cannot impeach him. You have a chief justice or a chief judge who does things that are considered unconstitutional. But again, you have an NJC that is also polarized. I also find it very difficult because the Chief Justice, for instance, of Nigeria is the chairman of the National Judicial Council, right? The Chief Judge of the state is also involved in the State Judicial Reform Commission. So you have a situation where human beings will always be human beings. But the only thing that can checkmate them is when the law is allowed to work. But the law cannot work by itself. It can only work by persons and authority. Look at what is happening today in the US. Every human being has a tendency to want to be recalcitrant and to want to be disobedient. But the law has to checkmate the person by having very strong institutions. Do we have strong institutions in Nigeria? The answer is no. And so we go back again until we reform the people. It will be difficult to reform the law. Everything we are doing now is simply cosmetic. But to a large extent, at least there's some improvement here and there. Look at the appointment of the president of the Court of Appeal and the impact right now it has made, at least in terms of justice delivery as regards appeals in Lagos State. That's an effective move by constituting extra panels to ensure that backlog of appeals are dealt with. And so to a large extent, there's still room for improvement, but the idea really is that we need to reform the people in order for the law to work. And like he already pointed out, the culprit really actually the lawyers, both senior and junior members of the bar, if I can describe it in that manner. Chief Olusegun Obasanjo said that if you have 10 lawyers in the room to advise you, you might likely end up having 10 reasons why you should obey or disobey.
Well, I don't know if that came to play, Mr. Quakers, in this circumstance that I want to raise now, because it would seem to me and perhaps to a number of other people that we're picky about the judgments that we execute as we are picky about the laws that we want to obey, what aspect of the Constitution that we want to line up with. For instance, the budget is a law, always obeyed in breach, if I can use that, if I can say it that way, because some would say almost 100% of expenditure is the expenditure part of the law is executed. Hardly do we ever get to the point where the capital expenditure part of the law is executed. Another one, and I think I would want to ask Mr. Nwoko this, is that at the state level, the Constitution provides for a local government system. The state governors themselves hardly ever are able to live up to the full tenets of the Constitution in that regard. So if we find it difficult to obey the Constitution itself, the ground norm, what's the court judgment to obey when the ground norm itself is obeyed in breach, Mr. Nwoko? Oh, okay. Well, maybe Mr. Quakers, you want to take that on first of all?
Absolutely. I was really excited the way the question was asked, and I commend you for that question. You see, the greatest challenge once again is the same attitude. Now, the maiden of justice wears a blindfold, and the reason for that is there should be no primordial consideration of sentiments in justice delivery. Now, you have a situation where there's a law in place, the Fiscal Responsibility Bill, and it is also it's also to ensure that there's accountability in government spending. Now, the National Assembly, I've not seen the National Assembly raise questions as regards budgets that have been presented in terms of implementation. Now, a particular budget year is expired or has expired, and then another budget is now presented. But no question is asked in terms of infrastructural development. Now, what have you used the money to do? No question is being asked. So you keep approving budget without necessarily seeing. But I recall that the current speaker, after inauguration, did say something that really touched me. And that is the time has come for the Nigerian government to also embark on development. How much have you set aside, for instance, for research? How much have you set aside, for instance, for education?
How much have you set aside now, for instance, for technology? But nobody is asking questions because the president is seen as higher mind. Somebody once described governance in Nigeria, and particularly as regards the presidency, that the Nigerian president is the most powerful. I beg to disagree. The Nigerian president is also subject to the constitution, just like the governors. Anyone who has been donated some authority from the Nigerian constitution is subject to it. And where you violate, there are checks and balances. That's the essence of the constitution. So I commend you for that question. It is again up to our own people to rise up to the occasion and ensure that the constitution is obeyed to the letter. And if anyone is found wanting in any area of observing clear and unambiguous provisions of the constitution, there are also provisions in the constitution in terms of sanctions to be taken, steps to be taken to bring the person to book, to bring the person to sanity. And so for me, again, it borders on the same attitude that we've always talked about. It's an attitudinal thing. Barack Obama, some years ago, when he visited Ghana, said Africa's greatest challenge is the want of institutions, strong institutions. We build persons and not institutions. Tomorrow, an attorney general will go. Another attorney general will be appointed. But the attorney general's position is not one where he should be subservient to the president. His responsibility is to the Nigerian constitution and Nigerian people. Look at what is happening today in the U.S., where an attorney general has resigned. And I recall that when Mimo Ogunde, as attorney general of Ogun State, also resigned when he realized that he wasn't working in tandem with the governor, when he realized that his position and the professional competence would be questioned. He resigned. And I think the time has come for us to now begin to experience that as well. On the grounds of professional competence, on the grounds of professionalism, you can walk away. Except we see it as a do or die appointment, that your whole life is dependent on the appointment or on the office that you occupy. But
Mr. Quakers,
now begin to run that.
What happens, is it out of place for the bar, for instance, to put their foot down and keep doing that time and again whenever they feel that there's a breach somewhere from whosoever, from whichever quarters, no matter whose ox is God?
I totally agree with you on that. Yes, I totally agree with you. But we're getting there, at least with the current president of the bar and the steps that he has taken, his pronouncement as regards government's responsibility, and sometimes the disobedience to government, to orders of court. He's made a number of statements in that regard. It's now for us to put our money where our mouth is. And I'm happy that that is coming up now, because it's never really happened in the last couple of years. Well, now you have a president of the bar who is also speaking, who is also addressing these issues. I remember growing up as a young lawyer, we had a vibrant bar that we view from court appearance. And I remember the Honorable Justice Jega of blessed memory, when he was sitting as a federal high court judge in Kwara State, Ilori, he had issues and the bar rose up to support him. And I think the time has come. When the court order is disobeyed, the bar must rise up. You have an Attorney General of the Federation, who is the Chief Law Officer of the Federation. He should also advise the government. You cannot disobey an order of court. It is calling for anarchy. It's calling for chaos. And I'm happy with the position of the bar right now as regards disobedience of orders of court, as regards recklessness and executive rascality and disobedience. I'm happy with the position the president of the bar currently is taking. And I think the time really has come for us all to rise up to it, so that we avert another end SARS. It will no longer be end SARS now, it might be end government.
The things that comes to mind about all of these issues that we have raised, Mr. Quakers, is the people. We have talked about, we're talking about the leaders, we're talking about those in the executive, those in the legislature, and those in the judiciary doing the needful, and the established, bodies like the Nigerian Bar Association and all of that. But ultimately, it's about the people. If you cannot break it into smithereens so that the people can get the full value of it, there we have a problem. Now, how do we now begin to communicate a sense of judicial responsibility to the people when we are having these problems at the top? Because irrespective of what the leadership is doing, the law is very effective on the people. The law on internally generated revenue is very effective with the people. Wandering and all of those basic things, they are actively affected by officers of the law. So how do we ensure that the people themselves can buy into this sense of judicial responsibility so that when they themselves find themselves in power, they will do the needful?
Thank you so much for that question. I recall a friend of mine once said this: when the common man accesses justice and is able to walk away with his head high to say, yes, justice has not only been seen to be done, it has indeed been done, he would then have confidence in the justice administration. Now, but the question is, the current structure, does that allow for it? If a poor man and a rich man interface with justice, how will the scale of justice tilt? Not based on justice in itself, not based on facts in itself, not based on the need to do justice, but based on inducement and the tilting of the scale in favor of the rich. Now, if that trend continues, it simply means that the common man on the street will never have confidence in the judiciary. Now, we are the product of our society. Someone who has had an interface with justice and realized that justice delivery was skewed to favor a particular person will seek and pursue power and relevance. When that occasion arises, you will do everything within your means to also ensure that the perks of office that your predecessor in office enjoyed, you also enjoy. Now, we're exposed to all kinds of vagaries of the society. People sometimes use their tools, sometimes use their means to ensure that the scale of justice tilts in their favor. On a lighter note, a colleague of mine once said, the maiden of justice globally wears a blindfold in order to ensure that justice is delivered without fear or favor or influence. But in Nigeria, that veil is always lifted to see who is before justice. And if that trend continues, there's no way any common man on the street will have confidence in our justice delivery system because it's skewed to favor those who have. But I think the time has come for us to continue to enlighten the Nigerian public. The Nigerian Law School has a part to play in all of this. The Nigerian Bar Association has a lot to play on, particularly the human rights component of Nigerian Bar, the human rights committee has a role to play in all of this. The Nigerian Judiciary itself also has a role to play. So if all of us are involved in enlightening the Nigerian public and they do not only see it as being done, but they can see that indeed justice is being dispensed without fear or favor, then the Nigerian people will also then have confidence. Because the real fear is this: if I do something and I know I cannot get away with it, then there will be no need for any other person to want to toe that path. But the reason why this has continued for so long is because once you do it, you know you'll get away with it. All it requires is just influence and knowing the right people to call. And then it's all over. Like you recall, a few minutes ago when you were addressing us, you said that Chief Ololani Pekwese and Mr. Femi Falon said there are enough laws that covers the field, that some of these governors do not even know the power that they possess. Same thing with the Nigerian people. There are many laws that the Nigerian people are also empowered to deploy. But because these laws have also not been related to them, that's why they also do not know their right. How many Nigerians have a copy of the Constitution? Have we succeeded, for instance, in translating the position of the Constitution from English to our native languages, into Yoruba, into Hausa, to Igbo? And until we begin to do that, we haven't started. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Onwoko, go ahead and give us your concluding thought, because, I mean, if the governors don't know some of these laws, that the powers that they've got, can't we then blame the attorneys general of those states for those?
Well, I think the issue is a bit more complex than just picking up the office of the Attorney General to blame even the governor. You see, today we have the Governors Forum, and the Governors Forum is a body of all the governors in the country. But how many times can the governors come together as a team, as a group, which was the essence of forming that Governors Forum, to take a decision that strengthens the Governors Forum without party sentiments coming into play? So that's why even among attorneys general, see, I have been attorney general. How many times have we been able to meet as a body to speak dispassionately, shun of political interest, party lines, to say this is in the interest of Nigeria, let us look at this law as it is. So the issue is more complex than just the governor of today or the attorney general of today, because it's very endemic. And to cure the problem, we would really need to go back and check ourselves. Like I said earlier, sentiments are playing major roles in our decision making. Sentiments of politics, sentiments of religion, sentiments of ethnic. So all those things have to be taken together so that if we break this and then begin to build stronger institutions, including the judiciary, when the institutions are stronger than the individuals, we would have said, okay, we can make a headway. But until that is done, well, God will help Nigeria to continue to move. I hope that within our lifetime, something positive will happen.
Well, God will have to walk through us all if it's to help. Well, we do thank you for your thought this morning, Uwe Nwoko, Senior Advocate of Nigeria and Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice for Akwa Ibom State. We also do thank you, Mr. Norris Quakers, Senior Advocate of Nigeria.